Xena Communications brings you this segment of the Sports Narrative radio show, offering customizable network cameras with installation for residential and commercial properties in the greater DFW area. Call or click today to set up your free consultation.
Gentlemen, we lost a legend, an icon. As you can see, if Feltman can do anything with the center camera, as you can see sitting there right in between Mr. Feltman and I, is one of the most famous shots of all time. Muhammad Ali versus Sonny Liston, May 25th, 1965. The first round knockout in the rematch versus Sonny Liston. But as you look at the life of Ali, you know, there's been so much said about him. There's been so much that has, you know, there's these great documentaries out there. I think the HBO one on the Thrill of Manila is absolutely fantastic. The When We Were Kings, tons of great documentaries, biographies. But as I just kind of scanned through the life and watching a lot of the things that were said about Ali, I found that there are certain seemingly milestone moments along the way. And so I wanted to break up the life of Muhammad Ali into basically 5 parts. You boys feel free to jump in and comment on anything you would like. The first part of Muhammad Ali's life I call the beginning. As Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. was born January 17, 1942 in Louisville, Kentucky. He has 1 sister and 4 brothers. His father, who he was named after, Cassius Marcellus Clay Sr., his father was in fact named after an abolitionist who was from Louisville, Kentucky.
Did not know that.
And obviously you can see already some of the things, you're going to see a lot of things that play into his life throughout all of this. His father painted billboards and signs. His mother was a housewife raising the children. One of his mother said about, at that time Cassius, said one of the biggest impacts that happened to him as a child is when he was less than 10. They were out. He had gotten a tickle in his throat, needed something to drink.
Punched himself in the throat really hard.
Exactly.
Oh.
They walked in and said,
no.
"Hey, he needs some water."
I know where this is going.
And they wouldn't serve him.
God.
I think he said he was 8 years old. So, at 12...
Was it because he was so young?
No, it was because it was Louisville, Kentucky, and it was 1964. And
because he was Islam?
No, he wasn't Islam yet. We'll get there.
Oh.
Because he was black.
Oh, America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the age of 12, young Cassius Clay is upset, standing on the street because his bike has been stolen.
Dang, I want to meet the dude that stole Muhammad Ali's bicycle.
Did he find the guy?
Up walks Officer Joe Martin. And Officer Martin sees the young Cassius Clay very upset. Says, "What's wrong, son?" And he says, "When I find the guy who stole my bike, I'm going to whoop his ass."
So did he say, like, "When I find the guy who stole my bike"?
Maybe.
Like already at age
So he was already a violent man from age 12.
Officer Joe Martin also happened to be a boxing coach. And he said, "Hey, son, how about you learn how to do that first?" And at the age of 12, that is when Muhammad Ali, then Cassius Clay, began his boxing career.
Think about that. I mean, obviously he had immense physical talent. I mean, that was in there, and he was able to unlock it. But what happens if his bike doesn't get stolen?
Or what if that cop was a ballet instructor? I mean, in all sincerity.
Better.
There you go. Well, his amateur career began in
He was a pretty good dancer in the ring.
You know what I'm saying?
I think it could translate.
1954, he won 6 Kentucky Gold Gloves, 2 National Gold Gloves, and an Amateur Athlete Union Championship. Amazing. All of that earned him a spot in the 1960 Olympic team in Rome. However, despite being a very accomplished boxer, Ali, then Clay, was not a very good student. He suffered from pretty horrible dyslexia.
Okay, I was going to say, that would shock me, but that makes a lot of sense.
And in fact, the way he learned his studies is he would memorize them and speak them back in a rhythm, in a song. and he was very fond of poetry. Again, you see all of these things build up. As an amateur, he had a record of 100 wins and 5 losses, and he goes to the Rome Olympics, where, of course, he wins the gold medal in the heavyweight championship, and he is now a gold medalist in the United States. He returns back to his hometown of Louisville, Kentucky, and he gets kicked out of an establishment as they will not serve him.
How come?
I think we know this.
Oh, same answer?
Yeah.
Same answer.
I thought maybe they didn't like the Olympics.
As an Olympic champion, huh?
As an Olympic champion.
That's how we were.
That's how.
Hashtag Kentucky.
Phase 2 of the Muhammad Ali life, as we do a little retrospective here, I call the shakeup. And it began in October 29th, 1960, as Muhammad Ali turns pro and fights Tunny Hunsaker. And
What?
he gets Tunny Hunsaker.
Okay.
Boy, you say that 5 times real fast, we'll get kicked off the air.
I know, right?
It is not 10 o'clock yet.
As a 6th round decision gives Ali his first win. And throughout his amateur career and his pro career, he begins the trash talking. In fact, earning himself the Louisville Lip is the nickname of Muhammad Ali, the Louisville Lip. As he starts pro and he goes up through the ranks, he earns a record of 19-0 with 15 knockouts, and he joins with manager Angelo Dundee as he's getting ready to earn his first title fight versus the very bad man known as Sonny Liston on February 25th, 1964 in Miami, Florida. The fight is to begin. Sonny Liston was a bad dude. He had a criminal record. There were many rumors of mob ties, and he was the baddest man around, basically. And Ali, of course, in his Ali, where actually this time still Cassius Clay, in his Cassius Clay way, called Liston a big ugly bear that after I beat him, I'm going to donate him to the zoo. Ali was a 7-1 underdog in this fight. But after the fight was over, he was the champion. At the age of 22 years old, Muhammad Ali became heavyweight champion of the world, defeating Sonny Liston in a decision, and thus ends Phase 2 of the Muhammad Ali life. Phase 3 of the Muhammad Ali life I call the icon, because this is when he went from being a boxer to becoming an icon. The day after he defeats Sonny Liston at 22 years old, he's the heavyweight champion of the world. He changes his name to Cassius X Clay, and later changes it officially to Muhammad Ali. After winning the championship, Ali didn't take his time to go back into training and worry about a rematch. No, Ali immediately took his world championship belt and went and toured the world and took it to the world. He took it to Zaire in Africa. He took it to Manila in the Philippines, both places he would fight later. He took it around the world because he wanted to be a world champ and because he started to care about society. And obviously we see that from all the influences before, but it's 1964. We're talking the beginning of civil rights movements. We're talking a time in America where everything is changing. And so, after the world tour, he comes back and he has after a few warm-up fights, he takes on Floyd Patterson, another former champion. The Floyd Patterson arguments got a little rough, as Floyd Patterson was called an Uncle Tom, was called the Rabbit by Ali, and Floyd Patterson would continue to call him Clay despite the fact that he had changed his name to Muhammad Ali. This, of course, upset Ali and led to a 12-round decision where Ali dominated the fight. And in fact, many criticized Ali for really toying with him and punishing Patterson and not finishing him off.
Could have put him down anytime he wanted.
Absolutely, he could have. But he didn't. So he remains the champ. And then, 1966. Ali is reclassified on the draft board and is basically going to be drafted. And he says, and this is, I would say, this is how this entered into the lexicon of America, is the conscientious objector. This became the, like I said, most people I think at that time didn't even know that was an option. But he says, due to his religious beliefs and being part of the Nation of Islam, he becomes a conscientious objector. Sidebar, quickly, Mr. Fellman.
Sir.
Given the way that we view today Islam, could you imagine if Cam Newton all of a sudden changed his name to Muhammad and, said, I'm Nation of Islam, blah, blah, blah?
I don't know that it was that much, if it would be any worse off now than it was back in the day for when Muhammad Ali did it. I mean, that was at the time of the Vietnam War. I mean, he caught a lot of slack and got death threats for that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is exactly what would happen to him today. And again, one thing Cam Newton wouldn't have to deal with is the race card of it. It's just the religion aspect, but I don't know that it'd be that much worse, which is depressing.
This is the part where I think Ali goes from, like I say, boxer to icon because of the next few months. Because of the conscientious objector tag, America is, upset with him. They're going to sue him over, being a draft dodger, all of this stuff. He fights a few fights in Canada. As he goes to Canada, and in fact, he was going to fight a fight in Montreal. The U.S. State Department calls Montreal and says, we will pull out of the World's Fair, the expo in Montreal, which eventually gave them the name of their baseball team.
Yes.
We will pull out of that if you allow this fight to happen. And so they didn't. And he moved to Toronto, and they end up fighting a few tomato cans in Toronto. But in March of 1967, he comes back to America. They pull his passport. He is formally charged in court, which goes through the appeals process. And for the next 4 years, from the age of 25 to 29, Muhammad Ali does not fight, loses the prime years of his career.
What were the years?
Age 25 to 29.
Man.
All because he believed in a cause.
Well, it's because he didn't want to go kill anybody. I mean, they were fine. He was fine with beating them up. It was when the government told him to kill him that he had a problem.
Exactly. And in fact, many quotes there where he says, why do I want to go over there and kill them? My country doesn't care about me.
Yeah.
Those people never called me the N-word.
Nope.
So, fascinating. This is, I think, the most fascinating part of the entire story. Do you know about the Ali Summit?
No.
June 4th, 1967. Several of the most prominent black athletes at the time all decide to get together in Cleveland, Ohio, and meet with Ali and talk to him about his decision. Talk to him about, all of the things that are going on with Ali. Ali is this huge icon. So, Bill Russell, Jim Brown, a young basketball player known as Lou Alcindor at the time, all meet in this room. Hall of Famer Willie Davis, all meet in this room.
He converted one.
Exactly. To talk Ali out of his decision. The very undereducated Ali proceeds to talk all of the men in that room into agreeing with him.
Oh, that's amazing.
And at the end of the summit, there's wonderful pictures of him sitting next to Jim Brown, and obviously you see a very young, what would become Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, all sitting in this room, and they all say, we support him. We support his decision. And obviously, you saw after that the effects of that. Jim Brown retires, says, I don't want to do this. Lou Alcindor also converts to Islam, becoming Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The effect that Ali had here, this is when I think, for me, this takes the change.
I agree.
So from that moment, he sits out the 4 years. Finally, the U.S. drops their case against Ali. And in 1970, we start Phase 4 of the Ali life. And that would be called The Return. And it started with a young man named Jerry Quarry. As in October of 1970, Ali fights Jerry Quarry in Atlanta. A third round TKO where Quarry takes a cut above the eye and they end up stopping the fight. A few other little fights later, they have now set up, Ali is now the number one contender against Smokin' Joe Frazier, a fight known as the Fight of the Century in Madison Square Garden, where two undefeated fighters are going to go at it for the heavyweight belt. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, Ali, obviously, when he gets drafted, they pull all his titles away, they hand them out to other people, so now he's going back to become the heavyweight champ. Well, in the fight, Ali, it was the first time you could see the rope-a-dope strategy in play. The other thing that was interesting about this fight is the vitriol between Ali and Frazier was amazing. Ali, obviously being his normal form, talking brash, making fun of Frazier. Frazier was so pissed. The fight starts and Frazier just charges him. And again, this is where you see the first of the rope-a-dope strategy, where he would get up against the ropes and let Frazier hit him, and then, jump away and counterpunch. However, he had not perfected the art yet, and Ali loses a unanimous decision in the fight. Well, he's got to go do another couple other fights. One of the fights that never happened, but wanted to happen, is right after this fight happens. Wilt Chamberlain challenged Muhammad Ali to a boxing match in 1971.
That's insane.
Ali, of course, never pulling punches, much like Donald Trump, talks trash to everyone who challenges him. Said the famous words, "If I get in the ring with him, timber!" And Wilt Chamberlain actually called the fight off because he was actually worried that Muhammad Ali would really hurt him.
Absolutely.
Of course he would. What kind of idiot thinks they can get in the ring with a professional boxer?
Yeah, I know, right? And Wilt had like 40 pounds on him and was 7'2".
Yeah, he even had reach.
Yeah.
Wilt might have had him in another category, though.
Well, maybe.
STDs?
Yeah, it's possible.
If he could use that as a weapon, put a glove on it. All right.
Just anytime he gets close, he just whips it out and starts.
The helicopter attack.
I think they had that in Street Fighter.
Go, Gadget.
Ali would get another shot at the title, and that would be the Rumble in the Jungle versus George Foreman in Zaire.
I remember this well.
This fight,
I'm sure you do.
Absolutely, it to me it epitomizes everything that Ali was. This is when the rope-a-dope first works. He gets the giant George Foreman, who had already just beaten Frazier and Liston, and was stepping into the ring ready to take on Ali. Well, basically, Ali would get up against the ropes and let Foreman wear himself out, which he did, and used it in the 8th round to knock out Big George Foreman and recapture the title. Interestingly, in the meantime between that and his next big fight, he had a couple other little smaller fights. One of the guys he fought in the middle there was a guy named Chuck Wepner. Anyone know who that is? He was known as the Bayou.
Later became Chuck Norris.
Nope.
Oh. Is that of the Wepner 5?
The Bayou Bleeder was what he was known as. Yeah. Chuck Wepner.
Hemophilia? That'd be a bad move
Chuck
for
Wepner
a boxer.
Did bleed quite a bit. He was known for getting cuts. But he actually knocked Ali down once in the fight with him. Of course, he then went on to lose.
And he just walked out of the ring and said,
just dropped the gloves.
But like, Chuck Wepner was what Sylvester Stallone says was the inspiration for Rocky.
Oh, okay. All right.
So there you go.
Huh.
And then the big fight. I think the thing that ends Phase 4 of the Ali career, and that is the Thrilla in Manila. October 1st, 1975. They're going to fight in the Philippines.
I think this is the night I was conceived.
Nice. 10 a.m. the fight was on in the Philippines, and if you know anything about the Philippines, it's warm there.
Yes, it is slightly tropical.
The Aranta Coliseum, with its aluminum roof...
That's nice. Oh, they made a baked potato oven for a stadium. That's nice.
Was guesstimated at 120 degrees.
Thought I was kidding. You can't
Inside
stick an aluminum roof on
the
something.
gym for a 15-round fight.
Ah.
The 6'3" Ali would take on his nemesis, the 5'11" and a half Smokin' Joe Frazier. The fight was absolutely brutal. Both men. Ali says he lost 5 pounds to dehydration in the fight, and said that I now know what dying is like because I went through this fight. Both men were ready. Both men were ready to quit. Like I said, the documentary on this is absolutely fabulous. Finally, the ref steps in and stops the fight in the 14th. After the 14th round, not to go into the 15th. Frazier's face had swollen so much, but he still wanted to fight. He didn't want to give up. He says, "No, I got him, bud." And they said, "No, it's over." And Ali wins. Neither fighter was never the same after this fight.
Well, yeah, no joke, man.
Yeah. I think this is the end of Phase 4 for Ali. Phase 5 of the Ali life comes with, and what I will call his end of life. In February of 1978, he finally loses the heavyweight title to a fighter who had fought 7 fights previously, one Leon Spinks, in a split decision. He would retire the next year in 1979, only return to boxing in October 2nd of 1980 to take on Larry Holmes. Prior to the Larry Holmes fight, the Nevada Boxing Commission told Ali to go get some neurological tests. The results of the test were not made public. However, many people said that this is when they first noticed something was wrong. Ali would lose the fight to Holmes, and in fact, most people our age, this is the fight that they remember Ali for, because this would be the only fight that they were old enough for.
Yeah.
Ali would go on to lose one more fight to Trevor Berbick and then retire finally. 4 years later, in 1984, he would be diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Ironically, the guy who made his name with his mouth and talking would soon lose the ability to speak. And then I think tons of humanitarian efforts, was still the global icon. Obviously, the Olympics in 1996 when he lights the Olympic torch in Atlanta.
That was huge.
Which was a total surprise. They completely kept it secret from everyone. And in fact, a lot of people thought it was Evander Holyfield. But Ali had gotten himself in shape enough to be able to do that.
Yeah, he looked so good they couldn't tell the difference between them. Is that what you meant?
No, not quite so much. The thing about Ali for me is Ali is the birth of the modern athlete. Ali is why we have the Joey Bats.
Yep.
Bat flip.
Oh,
Ali
without
is
a
why
question.
we have the Superman cam and
Yes.
the dabbing. All of those things came from Ali because nobody did that before he did.
They'll look at me.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah, I totally agree. He was the greatest.
I mean,
he
you
was
look
the
at-
godfather of all of
He
that.
was the greatest at it, too.
Yeah.
You look at all of that came after him, in Joe Namath, and into the 70s, and all of those athletes. That changed everything.
Well, he was if you really look at it, the time frame too, that was the first time when live sports, live boxing from around the world, they were able to encompass all of that. And, and TV was really starting to become mainstream. And Ali was the face that was on there. I mean, it was very similar to when TV first came out. But I mean, this is when sports was really starting to take off in the 70s. People had extra money to spend on stuff, and boxing was huge at that point.
Exactly.
And he was the last big guy.
And it's not only, it was a perfect synergy of, as you say, TV becoming a thing and being able to carry, the wide world of sports.
That's
he did with Howard Cosell,
Right.
and how he made Howard Cosell's career.
Yeah.
But Howard Cosell also made Ali because he made him.
Sports TV is what I meant. Obviously, TV's been around. I sound like an idiot, but he
No,
created
I know
TV,
what you
but
meant, yeah.
Sports television, really, he was a reason to follow and a highlight. He was a highlight reel
Absolutely.
that you wanted to see, and people were like, "Did you see the Ali fight?" No. At the time, to be able to find a replay was unheard of.
There was closed circuit. You would go to a theater and pay money to go see those fights, and like I say,
Wasn't that long ago, kids.
the thing about Ali is that if you look at him as just a boxer, you're only getting part of it. Because, as we say, for what we do in sports and all that implies, it's, he made the modern athlete. He is the first modern athlete.
Well, it's like looking at Kanye as only a singer.
God, I hate you so much.
Well, I'll tell you something that I don't think Kanye would do, but that Muhammad Ali did. It was a story that I wasn't aware of until seeing this, surface a few days ago. When it was 1981, and there was a gentleman who was threatening to jump from a building.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about this.
Yep.
21-year-old young man. And it just so happened that Muhammad Ali lived right down the road, and somehow or another I think
Punched him
someone
right off the balcony.
called him, or or he saw this, but basically,
I think he was driving by and he saw the commotion, and he had asked what had happened, and somebody says, "Hey, there's a guy trying to jump," and so there he goes.
So he pulls up. He's going the wrong way down a street as he's going
Yeah.
up toward the building, and he gets out and he walks up there and spends 20 minutes talking with this man, goes out, puts his arm around him, and brings him back in the building. And he had promised him, he said, "Listen, I'm going to take you back to my house, and we're going to talk about this." And son of a gun, the guy didn't get arrested or anything. He walked him right out the building into his Rolls Royce and drove back to his house. And
I remember that as a child. I remember because my dad was
crazy?
a cop.
Yeah.
And so I remember him relating a story similar of him talking a guy off of a roof. So it's amazing that was 1981, Criminy World.
Yeah.
But he was an
But that's
amazing
how much of a
human
great
being.
human being he was, yeah.
That's the key. He was a great human being, and he cared about other human beings.
Right.
And that is what didn't get taught from all these. I wish all that was a thing that the other athletes should take with it. It wasn't that Ali was just about him. Ali was about him and humanity as a
Right.
whole, man. That was the key to it.
Yeah, I mean, and willing to sacrifice his own career. Who would do that now?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I was thinking about, I don't know if any of you have watched the latest Russell Brand comedy special, which is really good.
I think you might be the only Russell Brand fan.
Oh,
in this
no,
room.
he's not.
Okay.
Well,
You don't know the new Russell Brand. You remember the old Russell
yeah,
Brand.
the new Russell Brand
is there
is
a new
talking.
Russell Brand?
He has this Messiah complex
Here's the
kind
deal.
of thing, right?
This is the new Russell Brand is me if I had unlimited confidence.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
And
money.
so he has this
I
kind
saw
of.
get him to the Greek. It was
He has
funny.
this kind of Messiah complex about him and all of these things. And there's a great special, again, on HBO about this. But what's fascinating is the thing that he's not willing to do in order to get to where he wants to go is sacrifice his own fame. Sacrifice his craft
Yeah.
in order to take that step.
Yep.
And that's the thing that Ali said, you know what?
I'll sit for 4
I'll
years.
sit.
Yeah, in his prime.
And so it's not only as an athlete, it's not only as a humanitarian, and as you say, and someone fighting for the social justice. It's and then also being the superstar. It's all of those things together is what make Ali the greatest. And it was at the perfect time in America, as you said, television, 1964 and the Civil Rights Movement. The Vietnam War, all of those things all wrapped up into one, and all basically, I think,
Sports
really,
Center showed up after him. I mean, if you think about the sports broadcasting,
Yeah.
all of that whole creation is all from that guy.
yeah. So
He's
you
huge.
look at the media aspect of this, but I think if anything, he, at being the modern athlete, he awoke America to, hey, we don't have to just take this from the government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was at the forefront of that.
He
period of
birthed
time.
you, Mr. Feldman.
He did. He did.
He
Happily.
is your father.
He
was
was at the forefront because he was the perfect man for the perfect time.
Exactly. And
He was another cog in the machine fighting the man.
again,
And a huge one.
Made a pretty big
2016,
difference.
He was.
2016, the year where all the cool people die.
I know.
Golly, seriously.
Rest in peace, Muhammad Ali.
Find more by subscribing to this channel and visiting us at www.thesportsnarrative.com. Join us every Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Central for a live edition of the Sports Narrative Show, brought to you by Xena Communications and G&K Services.